had a work call wrap up late, but it's good to join you guys. And yeah, I'm doing well, all things considered. Cardinals are picked to finish fourth. General consensus
Oh,
around just about every league insider. So, that's exactly what should happen. Year three of a rebuild, right?
I possibly we know a little bit about a rebuild over here in Washington. We've been saying it for 30 years. So we're in the same boat. but let's talk about your guy Kliff Kingsbury in Arizona. Uh, you mentioned the rebuild part, and we also know about the talent that was acquired this off season, and that's just been kind of building over the last couple of years. What is the consensus, or what is the progress report on Kliff Kingsbury? Where is the community at? Where are you at in terms of how he's trying to get things going over there? I ain't gonna lie to you. I just don't I don't know about Kliff. I don't
Yeah,
he just doesn't strike me as an NFL coach. I think
sure.
it was a move to kind of reflect or mirror Sean McVay, in a sense, like when that fad was going on. The same thing would happen in Green Bay when they hired their guy. I'm not saying that they aren't qualified. I'm just saying I feel like that was kind of a mirror move. But that's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at with it. But I'll give you the floor. Where is your head at with Kliff Kingsbury and stuff?
Yeah, I think your synopsis is the shared by, I would say, 75% of the casual fan base of other teams and the national media. It's difficult. The Cardinals went through three coaches in 3 years. They had Bruce Arians retire, then they brought in Steve Wilkes, and in my opinion, didn't give him a whole lot of talent to work with. Saddled him with Josh Rosen. He was fairly or unfairly outed after 1 year, and they immediately pivoted. Right, Wilkes was this very defensive heavy head coach. And so they said, okay, our offensive numbers were so poor in 2018. We're going to flip the script. We're going to go all offense this offseason. And what they do, they hired the exact opposite of Steve Wilkes, a young offensive, head coach, coordinator, whatever you want to call him, and Kliff Kingsbury, who had just been fired by his alma mater in Texas Tech. He was supposed to be the USC offensive coordinator, if you remember, and ended up just backing out of that to become the Cardinal head coach. And the Cardinals had a vision in mind. They said, okay, Kliff, all you have to do is elevate the offense. The offense in 2018, fair or not, with Wilkes and Rosen, was statistically the worst offense in the NFL the last 20 years. Advanced metrics, everything supports that. And so they bring in Kliff Kingsbury. They're in a complete rebuild. They know they're going to take Kyler Murray. They said, Kliff, you elevate Kyler. We'll piecemeal the defense with you. We'll bring in Vance Joseph. He had no NFL contacts. They had the general manager, Steve Keim, had to hire all of his defensive assistants. And I'll give Kliff credit his first year in a very competitive, difficult division with a team that went to the Super Bowl within his division. They went 5-11 and were very competitive. The offense with generally almost the same exact parts outside of a midseason trade. This is in 2019 for Kenyon Drake. This is the same team. But of course, you insert, the explosive electric Kyler Murray. Kliff did not embarrass himself his first year, especially when you compare him to guys like Zach Taylor. So I think a lot of us were cautiously optimistic coming into last season. Then they get off to that fast start. The Hail Murray, they're 6-2, 6-3. They're really kind of the darlings of the NFL. And then what happened? They started 2-0 in the division. The wheels fell off. They finished 0-4. Listen, they've never Wilkes, Arians, and now Kingsbury. They've never beaten Sean McVay. Sean McVay's been brought in as the head coach of the LA Rams. They're 0-4 against him,
That's
and
crazy. I didn't
typically
even
they
know that.
lose. They lose in embarrassing fashion, right? So that's one thing. Russell Wilson's missed the postseason one time in his career. He and Pete Carroll going into the Hall of Fame. I think it's unfortunate for Kliff because I don't think he's as bad as perception is. I mean, he could be Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett went to the postseason, a handful amount of times, was allowed to grow as a head coach. You don't have that luxury in this division with three coaches that most people think the general consensus. And I like Kyle Shanahan. I don't think he's elite. I don't put him in the same category as McVay and Carroll, but it's clearly he's much better than Kliff. When you're rolling into the season and the consensus is you have the fourth best head coach in your division, that it's going to be difficult. As loaded as a lot of people think this Cardinal team may be this year, I think that's the reason so many people are just like writing them off, especially last year. They were the benefactor of playing a lot of backup quarterbacks. The fact that they fell apart on national TV in week 16 and 17, losing to backup quarterbacks with the playoffs on the line. I mean, really, last year was their year to make the postseason. They got to play the NFC East.
I thought so.
They got to play the AFC East. They got a Niner team in week 16. Remember that game was on Amazon Prime on a Saturday night, and CJ Beathard was playing. They had nothing to play for, and they got steamrolled. And then, of course, they lost week 17 to the LA Rams. So I think the perception of Kliff is he's okay. He was probably given this job as a reactionary move, but I would caution some people on that, just because think about where this team was transitioning from Wilkes to Kingsbury. The roster was at that point, the general manager should have been fired as well. Steve Keim should have been fired. They should have cleaned house, started over, got a new regime. So if you're a head coaching candidate, somebody who do you want to saddle your reputation to somebody like Steve Keim and a roster that looked like an expansion level roster before Kyler Murray got there? And the Arizona Cardinals are not the Packers. They're not the Steelers. The Cardinals were trying to hedge their bet with Kliff and where the league was going with offensive innovation, and I commend them for that. They had the Cardinals are not a big time NFL brand. That goes without saying. So they have to hedge their bet when they hire coaches. Because if Kliff Kingsbury would have exploded at USC that next year and gotten NFL interviews, and he does have contacts in the NFL, he knows Bill Belichick, he knows McVay. McVay and he coincidentally are very close. He would not have given the Cardinals the time of day. So I think they thought to themselves, okay, we're going to buy low with the hope that, he takes off. And so, just to recap, I don't think that he's as bad as people think. I just think that the NFC West is maybe the most talented division, both with coaches and personnel, that we've seen in 10, 15 years. It's a bad time for him to be a coach in the division.
So let me ask you, because I get it, and what you're saying is important in terms of just being cautious and holding steady with Kliff. And in your personal opinion to this point, if you had to give a percentage just on your opinion, what's the stamp of approval? Is this above 50%? Is he in favor, or is this something where it's like you just need to see a little bit more?
I think they will move off of him if they do not make the playoffs, and if they have a winning record and miss the playoffs. I don't even know if that's possible now with 7 playoff teams. That I think if they miss the postseason this year, they will fire he and general manager Steve Keim, partially because of the pressure that Michael Bidwell, the owner, will face from Kyler Murray, who has done his job. I mean, he put up a season last year. His numbers were unlike anything Cardinal fans have ever seen. Total yards rushing, throwing the football, total touchdowns. If Kyler emulates that, and we think a lot of people builds on that this year, and they still don't make the playoffs, they're going to have to go out and pivot and get a big-time head coach that's going to want to work with Kyler, that Kyler has respect for. Because Cardinal fans hate me for saying this. He has an ace up his sleeve with the fact that everything you hear and read, just look at every time there's an article about baseball, about I need to win. Yeah. I'm addicted to the postseason. I've never lost in my life. And it's true. I mean, he lost one game. I don't think he lost it all in high school. He lost, 2 games at Oklahoma or whatever it was. And now he's saddled with a franchise that has the longest championship drought in all professional sports. So I think that they're going to have to go out. I mean, I would not be surprised if they cleaned house. Michael Bidwell put his arm around Kyler and say, you're going to be a part of the coaching interviews, because they're going to write him a check for whatever he wants. And give Kyler credit. That's not where his mind is right now. He wants to compete for championships. His bar is here. The Cardinal organization, we'll see. So I think that if Kliff does not make the postseason, they finish 4th in the division, I think they'll clean house and they'll appease Kyler and try to find. I mean, it would not surprise me if they went out, and I know this is crazy to speculate even before the season starts, and go out and get the Philadelphia coach that was fired last year, somebody who's been to the Super Bowl before. Yeah, Doug Peterson, somebody like that, I think is what they'll target if they move off Kliff.